Hello, my name's Hannes and welcome to Painting by Letters. Today I want to return to the project of building a battle board. To really quickly recap, in the last episode we did some research and we purchased some items as well. I relied a lot upon the guidance of YouTubers and figures like that, and I want to discover if board building is really as easy as people say it is. But to do that, we need to build the board. So let's talk about the plan. Roughly speaking, we're going to get a panel of ply, which is a 2 foot by 2 foot panel, and then we are going to attach stripwood boards on all of the sides to hopefully stop it from warping and also give a base within which we can safely put in the expanded polystyrene. So we can see here that I've got a saw, a mitre and some stripwood. If I'm honest with you, I think the saw spent more time going through the mitre than it did actually the stripwood itself. The mitre had really thin kind of grooves. The sawing became quite difficult actually because a lot of the time I was cutting against the plastic, which wasn't ideal. I measured everything out on the 4 of them and slowly began the process of cutting through them. For the rest of this video I'm going to be using sped up footage just because this actually happened over the course of about 2 weeks and there were some of the hottest weeks in the year here in the UK, which meant that some of it was quite grim, but I got everything measured out and got everything cut to size. The plan had been to use these corner grips that would allow us to create right angle corners around all the pieces of stripwood. So once measured, I got these out, got my wood glue out, and then I was going to glue the stripwood down onto the panel and then use these kind of corner grips to lock them into place. This is when I realised the big mistake that I had made. The thickness of the ply underneath meant that the ply had warped and that stripwood was off. So I thought, no big deal, I've got nails of the right size, I'll drive them through and see if that works. And all it really achieved was separating the stripwood from the ply underneath. I gave it a good solid try, and in fact that panel is rock solid now, but it took a couple of days of it sitting there in pretty sturdy clamps to get anything out of it, and realistically speaking it's just a failed part of the project. So we needed a new plan. Well, the whole idea of the wood is to save the polystyrene underneath. So if I created like little stripwood feet, these feet could then hold the wooden boards off each other, meaning that the expanded polystyrene would be safe underneath. So I decided to have a layout plan because obviously this was much simpler now. Same as the realm of battle boards, we're going to go with 6 panels. This gives us a little bit of variation and allows us to have a couple of different layouts as well. So given that we can now cut into the thickness of the boards, which we wouldn't have been able to do with the initial plan, I decided to have a ravine and a set of mountains, meaning that we can move things around and set them up in any number of ways. So you can see here that I set them all out and organised them all on the floor and then cut one of the stripwood panels in half. Interestingly enough, at this time I discovered that the stripwood that I'd been sent from B&Q actually wasn't what I'd ordered. So if you go through all of the different lengths that I've been sent, some of them are actually different measurements, meaning that even if I had stuck with the original plan I wouldn't be able to complete it. This process of cutting feet took absolutely ages and was also on one of the hottest days in the year. Okay, so this is one of the square panels, and because the, let's say, attempt 1 didn't really work, I mean it is rock solid, I'll give me that. It is absolutely rock solid, but it's not quite lined up perfectly. You know what, it's really weird. Coming back to it, now I've had a bit of a break from it, I don't mind it, but some of the joints are pretty crappy. Yeah, it's not going to hold up for long, I don't think. So the new plan is to cut these cubes, and basically these cubes should still be 25mm thick, and they're roughly 20mm by 20mm on top. So if I put a cube, not quite a cube, like one of these on each corner, then if in the future I want to stack them, when I store them, they will stack resting on the wood and not on the foam. There is nothing to stop these warping, so that's a mistake. There is nothing to stop any other kind of damage that might impact the foam from the sides with this method, but I do think it's going to be a hell of a lot easier. These have been drying for about an hour, so let's have a look. I think they'll be better once screws, to be fair, it's solid. I think they'll probably be better once screws are put through them. So one of the things that I think I might do with my big drill is I'm probably going to put like pilot holes straight through and then basically screws all the way through them to lock them in as well. But I think for now, panel 1 done. So I'll do number 2 and then I'll just keep going. Over the course of the next couple of days, I would come back in and glue new feet onto the different panels as we went. Interestingly enough, these corner clamps ended up being absolutely brilliant for this. So at least I got some use out of those. And interestingly, when I was looking online, because I was tempted to buy proper clamps for doing something like this, I found out that the proper clamps would have been more expensive than the corner ones. So if you are thinking about a woodworking project and you know that you can get quite a lot of coverage around the two things that you want to stick together, these corner clamps are probably an absolutely ideal option to go for. The other thing that you might notice in the clips is that there are radically different times that this was all done as well. That is due to the fact that this had to be done over the course of quite a long weekend, and due to the drying time of the glue, it says on the bottle that it's about 20 minutes, but according to research online, you're better off leaving it for a couple of hours. It meant that this really did have to be done over a number of days. Once everything had been done and stuck down, I brought all the panels into the house and started cutting into the insulation foam. I actually didn't get this from B&Q in the end. I ended up getting it from a company called Wix because the delivery on these panels was dirt cheap, and it actually ended up cheaper than the panels at B&Q as well. So you can see here that I'm cutting them to size. So this is an 8 foot by 4 foot board. It ended up actually not being exactly 4 foot across. It was 3 foot something, but it was close enough that it worked. When it came time to do the landforms as well, I decided to just kind of do these live. So I just got my Leatherman out and just started carving into the foam to create those landforms as I went. So the ravine here is going to be based on the wood, obviously covered in Mod Podge and compound or something, but that's just to kind of give it a bit of structure. The hills as well, just using the offcuts here and going through it. This is a big, oh my god, what have I done moment, but never mind. I just thought I'd show off the destruction. There is probably a bit of a do as I say, not as I do here. It's not particularly a good idea to be cutting stuff like this up inside a house, but you might see down the back there I have an industrial strength hoover which I'll be using to get rid of most of the particles later. Now we have 4 complete panels. We have 2 with a ravine, and we have 2 different hills as well that we can use as kind of corner pieces or something. Obviously that's where I edit and bookshelf and stuff like that, and this is the colossal mess that has been left. Obviously now the job is to tidy up, but first I'm going to move these panels out into the garage for gluing later, and then I'm going to tidy all in one go. Once I'd got them all together, I just took them through here. So I'd been given this spray adhesive by people in the hardware store, and I discovered on the back of it, it actually says does not work with polystyrene. So I ended up just going with no more nails. I know that Eric's Hobby Workshop in a video, I think he used something similar to this for exactly the same purpose. And I'll be honest, I was really glad that I followed his advice because it worked like an absolute charm. The back of the packet does say that it only takes a couple of minutes to dry. I'm weighting these panels down with some dumbbell weights and just letting the glue cure for quite a while. Okay, so I wanted to sort of demo the basic concept here. I sort of hope this gives you the concept, I suppose, right? As long as these two panels travel together, they could be here, so you could have a ravine down here. They could be here, you've got a ravine down here, or you can have the ravine in the middle. We also have these kind of floating mountains, so we've cut, well, not mountains, hills, hillocks, potentially at best. We've got this larger one here, and then we've got some smaller broken up ones on this side as well. I know I haven't perfectly aligned them there, but it's just for sort of demo's sake. I think as I've been sort of moving these about, I have put the odd dent into the polystyrene. I'm hoping that with a bit of care and with some Mod Podge, they should fix themselves and become quite locked in. This project has been a bit of a pain. Obviously, B&Q got my order wrong, which means that I couldn't do the strip woods if I wanted to. I think there's been a lot of lessons learned here. One of the things that I'd really recommend if you want to do something like this is buy much thinner base woods. 12mm, it'll warp, and I don't really have any good method to stop it warping. And then when we sort of put the strip wood panels down the side, they lock in pretty well. And in fact, that sort of 1x1 panel outside with the strip wood borders on it is rock solid. But it's taken a day or two of clamping to sort of bring all of the woods together. If you're willing to, you know, make this a project that lasts a couple of months and you do sort of one panel a week or something like that, I think that style is probably much better than this. I could easily see this board probably falling apart in 6 to 8 months. There's a couple of things that I'm going to do to get round that. One of them is, you know, those sort of rubber feet that you can kind of get for furniture and stuff like that if you do any woodworking. I'm hoping to buy some of them and to put them in the corners, so that all the corners have like a little dampened riser, so that when the wood sits on the riser, it won't touch the polystyrene underneath. Once I've done that, I'm going to probably use some plasticard or something just to cover them up when it's all set out. I guess that'll be my equivalent of those clamps that the actual Citadel Realm of Battle board came on the underside. Having said that though, I'm actually really happy with how it's looking. This is sort of exactly what I'd hoped. When I'd initially thought about it, these two panels would have been flat and the mountains would have been built in to what have now become the flat panels. But I think this is probably better. It gives a bit more of a height derivation, I guess. Given that these are, what, 2.5mm thick, if we had like a little model, in fact, 1 minute. Necron Immortal for scale, we can kind of see that stood in the middle, he can kind of just see over the top and see underneath, but down here wouldn't be able to see over the top of the hill. With some scatter terrain, I think this very quickly becomes quite a capable board, and you can see from just the size of the model, it's going to be quite easy to have larger scale battles on this. I've got a friend hopefully visiting the place in Warhammer in maybe a month or so. So over the course of the next month, I hopefully will have sealed all of these in and gone over them. just to close, let's talk about final or next steps. So we need to buy some plasticard to go under the hills and for things that I might want to go over the joins. We're also gonna start sealing it in. So that's our Mod Podge, which is just, from what I understand at least, is just paint, water, and contractor's PVA. So I've got all of that in. That'll just go over everything. And then I'm hoping to buy about 3 or 4 different color spray cans, maybe sort of a green, a gray, and a kind of tan color. I'll use the tan color for the riverbed, the green and the brown, well, the green over the brown paint underneath on different thicknesses to give the kind of flat panels a bit of variation, and then the grey for the kind of the rock faces here. Obviously from Geek Gaming Scenics, we've also got those bark rock faces, so I'll be gluing quite a lot of them down, and then we'll also be going over stuff with their modelling compound as well. So fingers crossed with Mod Podge, modelling compound, other stuff over the top, this should become quite strong. I can't stop the panels warping, but I think that's just a lessons learned if I ever do this again. So yeah, to close, I'm actually quite happy, despite this project really not going how I wanted it to, and a lot of the things that I've bought turned out to be quite useless. So maybe when the project is finished, I might do a bit of a retrospective where I work out how much I actually should have spent. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm quite happy with how it's turning out. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. My name's been Hannes, this has been Painting by Letters, and keep safe out there.